Tonight, the siege in the Sahara is over. An Algerian army assault leaves more than 20 captives dead and many questions about the militants behind it. Charlie D'Agata with the latest. They're supposed to be banned from buying guns.
This is a person who was severely mentally disabled. He should never have had access to a handgun.
We'll show you how many states still fail to report the names of the mentally ill. And strike up the band. Chip Reed has the story of an Air Force musician who's playing at the inauguration while training the next generation.
This is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Jim Axelrod. 4 days after it started, the standoff between Algerian forces and Al-Qaeda-linked militants in the Sahara Desert is over. Algerian special forces stormed a remote natural gas complex where hundreds of workers had been held captive. Algerian officials say 23 hostages are dead, including one American. 32 militants are reported to have been killed. Charlie D'Agata has more on this still unfolding story.
These hostages were able to escape from the gas plant before Algerian special forces launched their final assault. State media reported that a number of foreign hostages survived, including at least 2 Americans. But in the chaos, it's not yet possible to get the exact figures. U.S. military aircraft evacuated some survivors to a NATO air base in Sicily. Pictures of the siege show gunmen rounding up hostages. This BP worker says terrorists told him, "You have nothing to do with this. You're Algerians and Muslims. We only want the foreigners." BP chief executive Bob Dudley said 14 of its 18 foreign employees at the plant were safe.
We are not able to confirm the circumstances of 4 of our employees. Tragically, we gravely fear that we will be seeing fatalities from this group.
Algerian troops discovered a cache of heavy machine guns, rocket launchers, and grenades. Hostages said the explosives were wired around their necks. Local media have identified this man, Abdul Rahman al-Nigeri, as the leader of the attack. He's a lieutenant of Mukhtar Bel-Mukhtar, head of an Al-Qaeda-linked group based in North Africa. The Algerian state oil company running the plant said the attackers had the entire refinery booby-trapped and that it would be days before the clearing out process is complete. Charlie D'Agata, CBS News, London.
3 days after President Obama unveiled his gun control proposals, opponents staged rallies in Buffalo, New York, and other cities around the country today. Organizers of the so-called Guns Across America event hope to block any new federal gun laws through local legislation. Since 1998, the FBI has maintained a database of people legally prohibited from buying guns, from felons to the mentally ill. But many states have been slow to report the names of their mentally ill residents. Since the Newtown shootings, however, there are signs that is changing. Here's John Bentley.
Despite 4 years in a Pennsylvania mental hospital, Emmanuel Nzambi was able to buy a gun in that state. He used it to kill Mary Mula. Brian Perry was Nzambi's attorney.
Any person who has been involuntarily committed to an inpatient mental health facility should not have the ability to purchase a handgun, period.
Perry believes the shooting could have been prevented if Pennsylvania had reported Nzambi's name to the federal database established by law in 1998.
He's a perfect example of somebody who slipped through the cracks.
For the past 15 years, the state of Pennsylvania collected the names of seriously mentally ill residents, but never sent that information to the federal government. Just this month, though, the state police sent 642,000 such names to the FBI.
It protects Pennsylvanians, and it also protects people from other states.
Pennsylvania Attorney General Kathleen Kane says states need clearer guidelines on who should be on the list.
We all have different definitions of mental illness. We all have different definitions of inpatient treatment or institutionalization, and we need to get those all on the same track.
But 8 states are not submitting any names. One of them is Massachusetts.
This is a place where public safety trumps any possible privacy right.
Massachusetts State Representative David Linsky is working on a law to get his state to report its names.
These are people who have been committed by a judge into a state mental health facility because they are a danger to themselves or to other people in the community.
1.8 million people are banned from buying guns for mental health reasons, a number bound to grow as more states comply with federal guidelines. John Bentley, CBS News, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
And we have a stunning scene to share. A politician was addressing a conference in Bulgaria today when a gunman approached with a loaded tear gas pistol and tried to shoot him. The attacker pulled the trigger twice, but the pistol misfired and he was wrestled to the ground. Turning to Washington now, where President Barack Obama will begin his second term at noon tomorrow. On the eve of this inauguration, his approval rating stands at 51%, according to the latest CBS News New York Times poll. Just 10 months ago, it was 41%, the lowest of his presidency. His high was in April of 2009, 68%. Bill Plan is at the White House for us tonight.
As workers put the finishing touches on the presidential reviewing stand in front of the White House, the president and First Lady freshened up some bookcases at Burville Elementary School in Washington, D.C.
Everybody here, adults to children, understand the importance of giving back.
The Vice President and Jill Biden joined volunteers packing care boxes for American service members. They were all taking part in the National Day of Service, dedicated to the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., whose holiday is celebrated on Monday, the same day as the ceremonial inauguration. But the president will be officially sworn in tomorrow, the day specified by the Constitution. President Obama will swear the oath of office with his hand on two Bibles, one used by Abraham Lincoln at his inauguration in 1861, and the other, a Bible which belonged to Dr. King. The first, covered in velvet and trimmed with gold, was loaned to Lincoln by Supreme Court Clerk William Thomas Carroll. A seal inside the cover marks the occasion. In the King Bible, Dr. King noted the dates of sermons he had given. Bernice King, the youngest of his four children, says it was her father's traveling Bible.
He used it to study, to meditate, not just to preach and speak, but just to prepare himself to be able to lead.
In a video released by the inaugural committee, President Obama calls the Lincoln and King Bibles a fitting choice.
Their actions, the movements they represented, are the only reason that it's possible for me to be inaugurated.
Turns out that 5 other presidents have also used 2 Bibles at their swearing in, typically one family Bible and another of historical significance. Eisenhower, Carter, and George H.W. Bush all used George Washington's inaugural Bible, which belonged to the first president's Masonic Lodge. Jim?
Bill, thanks very much. Later, Lance Armstrong, Manti Te'o, and the risk of calling sports stars heroes. The Air Force Band tuning up for the inauguration, and the housing market on the rebound in a place where it had once been left for dead. Those stories when the CBS Evening News continues. Boeing says tonight its assembly lines are still producing the company's new 787 jets, but it stopped delivering them to customers. The FAA has grounded the plane until the company comes up with a fix for a faulty electrical system that caused an emergency landing in one 787 this week in Japan and is suspected in a fire in Boston last week. There are more signs the housing market is recovering. The government reported this week that construction was up more than 12% in December, to the highest level in 4 years. As Carter Evans reports from Los Angeles, California is leading the comeback.
Really pretty.
Yeah, it's looking really good.
Aaron and Dino Omens just bought their dream home.
Just felt like the economy was starting to turn. And at the same time, the interest rates kept getting lower and lower. That created a sense of urgency.
They are hardly alone. At this development east of Los Angeles, sales have tripled over the last year. They're now selling homes faster than they can build them.
This community is hopping. There's a lot of activity.
Real estate agent Rose Broghammer says it's a stark contrast to the scene here 5 years ago when the real estate boom went bust.
There was a period where this was kind of like a ghost town.
That's a really good word for it. It was very desolate. I did a lot of short sales, helped a lot of people move out of their homes, out of their dream homes. and had nowhere to put them.
And now it's exactly the opposite.
Absolutely. Now we're seeing it come full circle.
And then some.
Yeah, this is our master bedroom.
The Omans haven't even furnished their 4-bedroom home with a view, but they've already been approached by people asking,
"Are you interested in selling?" I go, "You have to talk to my wife."
And I say, let's move in first.
timing is everything. If they had purchased this same home for more money at a much higher interest rate 5 years ago,
it would have been foreclosed. There's no question.
Yeah, that could have been us. We just,
We were right there.
Now, instead of being victims of the housing crunch,
how does that make you feel about your decision and your investment?
Secure.
Great.
Secure.
Aaron and Dino Omans may be part of a new dawn in real estate. Carter Evans, CBS News, Azusa, California.
We celebrate their glories, but worshiping athletes as heroes off the field for what they do on it is risky business. That's next. Armstrong joins a long list of American athletes whose polished image as heroes gave way to the reality of their human failures. With Armstrong and Manti Te'o in the headlines, we sat down with New York Times sports columnist William Rhoden to assess the risk in making heroes from our sports stars.
Lance Armstrong was a tremendously flawed person from the beginning. And I think this is the vestige of our wanting this great American hero. There's just something we're addicted to that.
Why do Americans insist on their sports figures being heroes?
I guess because we know that we're limited, and we're always looking for people and things that express the great possibility.
The noble, the brave.
Right, right. And sports is a great metaphor for that. When we are young, a young country, emerging country, you need these kind of mythical figures. Back then, in the 20s and 30s, 40s, we didn't really know anything about people. And that's the secret of heroism. The less you know, the bigger the hero they could be.
When the Manti Te'o story broke, were you surprised?
No. The cynical part of me was not surprised because it is such a bizarre story. What are they trying to cover up? What are they trying to hide?
But the idea that there was another side to this hero, that didn't surprise you?
No, like I said, I've kind of got to the point now where there's nobody that's too good to be true.
But in our culture, why do we have such trouble dividing the line between the heroic act and the hero?
Well, that's a great question, because we haven't done that. A guy rushes into a burning building and saves 50 people and comes out. 2 weeks later, we find out this guy beats his wife. Well, that does not detract from that heroic act.
But he's not a hero.
No, but before we say, oh, Joe Blow is a hero. What I'm saying is no. People performed heroic acts. There are heroic moments. That's it. But to take that leap from there, and that's what we do, particularly in sports, we take that moment and make that an existence. We make that the person, and then we become disappointed when we find out, guess what, this guy's just like me.
What you're saying is, Bill, that it's very risky business to instill in any human being superhuman qualities, even if they can do extraordinary things on an athletic field.
That's it. If you're a great running back, you're a great running back. That's it.
New York Times sports columnist William Rhoden. Still ahead, meet the Music Man who will be marching with the Air Force Band at the inaugural parade. We end tonight with a look ahead to the inaugural parade. Chip Reed has the story of a saxophonist marching to the beat of his own drummer, and the drummer hoping to follow in the sax player's footsteps.
The United States Air Force Band has spent months rehearsing for Monday's inaugural parade, making sure those famous John Philip Sousa marches are pitch perfect. Tech Sergeant Grant Langford has played saxophone in the band for 5 years. This will be his second inauguration.
Nothing is more patriotic than marching and playing Sousa. As soon as the crowd hears it, you hear the cheers because people know that that's the American almost theme song.
This will be the band's 16th inaugural parade. The first was for Harry Truman in 1949.
How hard was it to get in the band?
It's an audition process, and it's very competitive.
A new member can join only if someone leaves or retires. Unlike most military assignments, this one is permanent. Before joining the Air Force, Langford spent 8 years playing with top jazz bands, including the Count Basie Orchestra. He even recorded a Christmas album with Tony Bennett.
Why did you make the change?
Made the change because it was a great opportunity to continue my musicianship and to play and to serve the country.
Sergeant Langford also serves his community, volunteering in an Air Force mentoring program with 11-year-old Dontrell Parson.
What's it like mentoring Dontrell?
Oh, as you can see, it's a joy.
I just like the way his style is, and he's a great guy. So everything seems simple when he's talking to me.
You want to follow in his footsteps?
Yes, I would. I would be just like him, probably look like him too.
Do you dream of playing in the inaugural parade someday, just like him?
Yeah, but it's gonna be a lot of work, so I'm gonna dream it, then achieve it.
At a young age, with someone to lead the way, he now has the confidence to dream big. Chip Reed, CBS News, Washington.
And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. Later on CBS, 48 Hours. For all of us here at CBS News, I'm Jim Axelrod in New York. Good night.